Hello and welcome to CollectaThoughts, the show where I collect my thoughts on a video game I've been playing, and today we're going to be talking about Yakuza 7, the latest entry in the Yakuza series, and also a big landmark given its big change in the gameplay and also main character. I personally was pretty excited to play this game because of its changes, but also, temper the expectations because turning anything that's very action focused into a turn-based RPG could have its problems. But I actually think that Yakuza here does know how to do it in a way where it really remains faithful to the essence of what a Yakuza game is. And to start off with that, we have to talk about the story. And to me, my takeaway from this story was it was really trying to be sort of like the first game, but taking place now where the Yakuza world is a lot more built and the themes and mood of the game are a lot more established. Being that to say that it's a lot more silly than the early Yakuza games. But basically the story here is focus on Ichiban Kasuga, who is also a much more funny and to an extent self-aware character, which I think actually works better for a world like this that is really silly, especially in the side quests, but more on that later. On the main story front, Ichiban Kasuga goes through a very similar setup to Kazuma. He's an orphan, he goes to jail for a really long time for crimes he didn't commit, and his friend does spoilers. So you can see it follows very similar story beats, or the setup you could call it as well, but it is inherently a different story and I actually quite enjoyed it. I'm not gonna say I enjoyed it as much as the original Yakuza, because I do think it gets a bit too over dramatic or melodramatic, especially towards the end, and the middle also has a bit of a tendency to drag, but there were other things about it that are unique to this game that I quite liked a lot. For example, the way it kind of focuses less on Yakuza and more on normal people. With this new approach as a turn-based RPG and party system, it also allows the game during the story to focus more on other characters that aren't our main character, and that really shows here. Some of our party members you really grow attached to, especially given their backstories, which are a lot more relatable than your usual Yakuza. Notably, Yunamba being a homeless man and he having quite a lot of development given how he's introduced to the story and how important he is. But this also introduces the problem that not every character is developed in the same way or with the same amount of care, I guess. Here it goes by the rule of first come, first served, basically. The first few party members will get quite a bit of development, but the ones that show up later in the game simply do not get as much screen time for their own development. This being a bit remedied by how it actually works with the gameplay, because there is a system where you have to build up your relationship with them, much like a level up system, in which each level will have you have a scene with them, which does help a little bit with the development. But it's really not the same thing, I think. Regardless though, for me, Yakuza's story had a lot of up and downs. I think the early bits are really good and I think it's a great introduction to our new main character Ichiban, but it also does fall into a lot of the traps of the Yakuza series, and it does have a lot of drawn out cutscenes and it is a bit melodramatic, especially towards the end. So you have to be aware of that. It might even be something that you don't mind. Now on the gameplay front, this also being a big deal now, is of course the turn-based combat. Personally, I think it feels good, it's nice, it's simple. If you're within level, you never really have to worry too much. You can just kinda try out things and hit your enemies with the attacks that they say they are weak to. It's not really that much to think about. Status ailments do quite a lot here, but it's definitely no Shin Megami Tensei or something like that. It's mostly that status effects do actually do something, but I would say that actual status ailments, things like cold, which I think is a pretty funny way to interpret, like ice damage in a more realistic setting. Others don't even need to adapt to a realistic setting, like bleeding and burning work just fine in any setting, I guess. But regardless, my point is these don't do a lot of damage from my experience, so you don't have to worry too much about it unless they're affecting you, I guess. Now, if you are under level, maybe that becomes a problem, but that's kind of with any RPG really. And over leveled, well, this game really doesn't like you being over leveled. Found that, fighting guys your own level actually still takes quite a bit to level up, which is annoying, I think. I would like to let myself be a bit more over leveled, making the game a bit easier at some points, especially against boss fights, which are definitely the most challenging thing about this game. Usually, even if you are within level, they just have such high stats that they can really just cause damage, I guess would say. But I also get why not let you do it, since when you do fight weaker characters, it's very easy to tell that you could just wipe the floor with them and even just let the game play on autoplay, which is also a feature of this game that, I'll be honest, I used a bit more than I should, but mostly because I think the combat just doesn't have a lot of staying power. Once you've seen all the cool moves, you kinda just don't really care much anymore. I think this is where Yakuza actually ends up, taking advantage of its side content a lot more, because it really allows you to just take a breather from the main content, especially since, because of its nature, the combat here is a lot slower and methodical, rather than, the usual beat 'em up kind of thing. But there are a few things helping it, among them being the job system, which basically gives your character a whole new set of attacks and way of playing. It's kind of funny because you actually get these jobs at an unemployment office. It's quite funny. And even the jobs you get are like actual jobs for the most part. You can be a bodyguard or a chef or a fortune teller, which is not a real job. Yeah, I'm calling you out, scam artists. Regardless, it's funny to see these jobs used into a more offensive way. Obviously stuff like bodyguard, you already expect some physicality. But things like chef and breakdancer, which reminds me of the Yakuza 0 fighting mode. The things that you don't expect to be able to use as a fighting thing are probably the funniest, which once again adds to the levity of the game and helps it, be a much more relaxed experience. And speaking of relaxing, that's actually how I found myself playing this game a lot more. I would just come back to it and just have some fun time, maybe I would only progress a little bit in the story and then I would just have some fun with the side quests, which also helped me keep myself in level. The side quests here I just found more compelling this time around. Because of the silliness of Ichiban, he just kinda plays really well with the more silly aspects of the side quests in Yakuza games. Even though that doesn't explain why I spent like 6 hours playing the capitalism simulator. I'm not gonna spoil what that is, you can play it, it gives you a party member early on. I'm just saying it's all about their money. But actually, speaking of that, something really funny that introduces into the gameplay is the ability to recruit people on the street. This can't just be done with anybody, but it does allow you to recruit some pretty funny characters for that minigame, amongst which maybe a monkey, maybe a giant vacuum cleaner, who knows? I didn't just spoil a bunch of stuff. Yeah, there is a lot of crazy stuff. Of course, the other big thing is the Mario Kart ripoff, but it's okay. I mean, I think it could actually be really fun if there were more tracks and more crazy tracks, but unfortunately I found that most of them are a bit too easy with just a lot of straight lines, and it's like, well, just pick the car that has the highest top speed and you'll be good, and that's pretty much what I did. In terms of other minigames though, of course there's golf and some returning minigames like the Sega Arcade and the batting cages, which is nice that they brought back, not so much because I'm a huge fan of the batting cages, but because this game does take place in a different city, if you didn't know. I didn't know going into this game. I thought this was gonna take place in Tokyo like every other game. But no, it is a new step in a new direction, which is cool. You could tell for years at this point that the developers were kinda getting tired of Kamurocho, given how, Yakuza 3, Yakuza 5, Yakuza 6 have big portions of those games don't even take place in Kamurocho, which once again, even for the player, it's a good thing because you don't want to be playing the same game over and over again, right? Yeah, I better not argue with gamers on this one. Regardless, gameplay wise, I think they managed to do something interesting here. Even if it does get a bit old, even if it's not perfect, for me this was pretty good just because I was getting a bit tired of the Yakuza regular gameplay, regardless of how different it is every entry. And this was just a nice time for me. It was a relaxing game that I could come back to and just kind of play for a little bit and enjoy. Unlike another game I might be reviewing soon, I actually haven't decided if I will or not. Regardless though, final thing I want to say about the gameplay bit is that there is no skill tree. It's very weird going into a Yakuza review and not have a skill tree to talk about, because it's usually always so different, but Yakuza 7 does the brave thing and makes me not have to talk about it more than the 15 seconds I've been talking about it for. Anyways, moving on to the graphics, I think this game looks insane. It was quite a thing when I realized how good this game was by playing another Yakuza game. I've been playing Yakuza Kiwami for reference, and my god, it is a night and day difference. And not just on a literal level, because Yakuza 7 takes place mostly during the day and Yakuza Kiwami or Yakuza 1 takes mostly place during the night. Sorry. But no, it's legitimately a huge difference in just 4 years. Now from 6 to 7 it's not as big of a jump, but it's still quite impressive, and I think a big part of it is probably just because it's turn-based now, so you can probably optimize it better. I say that because one of the ways the combat works is it actually just takes place in the middle of the street like any other Yakuza game, and your characters can move freely with their AI, not by your control, which does create some odd situations where your character might be running into a wall because he doesn't know how to make a corner. It's kind of funny, but it's not a big deal. The only way this actually affects in the gameplay is that sometimes if you, for example, try to hit an enemy that's in the back of other enemies, the enemy that is in front might stop you, which makes you kind of lose that turn and even take a little bit of damage. Which I should have probably said this during the gameplay, but whatever. Regardless, like I said before, this game does take place mostly during the day, which I think once again helps with that silly mood the game goes for outside of the main story. Which is, a very Yakuza thing to do. But once again, I think that the changing protagonist definitely helped quite a lot in this. I'm not sure how the next Yakuza game will be, but I do think that Ichiban at the lead does help quite a bit in what Yakuza games have become. And that's not to talk bad about Kazuma. I do think that his kind of stoic character does help in certain situations, and I do think that he contrasted with the silliness in a fun way that in itself was silly. So just know this is not me criticizing Kazuma as a main character. As much like anyone, I was pretty invested and I was a bit cautious about this entry taking a new protagonist. But also I played Yakuza 6 and I don't want my boy Kazuma to keep suffering. Regardless though, this was a fun Yakuza game. It's not the best in the series in my opinion, but it is a worthy game and it's very unique. And if you're like me and you were a bit tired of the formula of Yakuza, then this will be pretty good for you, I think, as long as you like turn-based RPGs, which is a big deal breaker for a lot of people, and I totally get it. But also for those people, you have like 10 games, you're good, okay? But anyways, for all those reasons, I am giving Yakuza Like a Dragon a 7 out of 10. Recommendations wise, I think I've already made it clear. You know, are you into turn-based RPGs? Are you into Yakuza? Then you'll probably enjoy this, especially since you can play it on Game Pass, which makes it a much easier pill to swallow, I think, than having to buy it at full price. Regardless of what you do though, I hope that you enjoyed watching, and if so, please consider subscribing and liking, even commenting, all the things you can do for free here on YouTube. And regardless of that, I hope you're having a good day, and goodbye is what I would say if this was the end. I just want to say that, you know, I'm enjoying doing these CollectaThoughts a lot. I do think they save me a lot of time for sure. It's definitely not as an in-depth review as I used to write, but I just wasn't really having fun doing those anymore, specifically the writing bit, and I think these more free-form ones I've been enjoying quite a bit. And you know, since I don't really get views anyways, I might as well do something that I enjoy, because you know, at this point, YouTube is a very cutthroat kind of business to get into at this point. Seriously, I mean. Obviously, you can just have fun and make videos like I do, but to actually get your videos out there and seen by other people, it has become very much a abusing the algorithm through, you know, lying with clickbait and things like that, which I'm not really willing to do outside of like a joke maybe. I just don't like doing that kind of thing. I think it's wrong, you know, I don't want to waste people's time, and I think that's what those videos do. I get really annoyed when I watch a clickbaity video, and you know, I don't want to watch more of their videos anymore, even though I know that that tactic works because those videos get views and subscribers. The other way to get big on YouTube is purely luck and also talent, but I don't have either of those, so you know, I think I'm gonna be here for a while. I do think maybe that if I had a gimmick that was interesting enough, I could maybe get subscribers, but even then it's still like the luck of your videos being seen by anyone and them sharing them around, as I don't really go outside of my way to like promote my videos. I just, you know, once again, I don't want to bother people. I want people to watch my videos because they actually want to, you know, which is not a good way to look at it, I admit, but given I mostly do this for fun, it hasn't really bothered me too much yet. We'll see, I guess. I don't know. As long as I enjoy it, I think it's fine. I don't think I would even need to have this talk if I wasn't in the position that I am in my personal life, which is kind of a bit messy, especially since I lost my job, which is, you know, none of your concern really, but I just thought I would, you know, use the end of my Yakuza 7 review to vent a little bit. Sorry about that. Sorry if you sat through this and, you know, maybe you expected something cheerful or something like that. Anyways, regardless, let's hope for better days, and I hope you're having a good day, and goodbye.